Now this season I decided to have a go at Champions League Fantasy, and here are the first couple of drafts I've put together. So I would usually start one of these videos by looking at a model. By a model I mean like a projection of clean sheet odds in goals, because I find models based on betting data to be amongst the best tools that you can use for fantasy football, particularly when you're learning a new format. I'm not a European football expert, so I'm certainly learning this format. And also just in general, there are so many good teams in this competition. Some people might find it hard to, split the really good ones from the good ones, if that makes sense. It's always useful to have a model, but because the game is so fresh and the Champions League kickoff is still quite far away, I haven't seen any yet. So in the absence of that, I've got a graphic from FPL Tom Hadley on X. I genuinely think he is one of the best accounts to follow on X. And what he's got here is a ranking of the quality of fixtures for the first 4 weeks. And I reckon, I don't know, based on quite a lot of what other people are suggesting, after game week or match day 4, forgive me if I keep saying game week because I'm used to FPL, but after match day 4, might be a good time for a lot of people to choose their wild card. So looking at the first 4 fixtures, or up until when you want to play your wild card, I guess, is the kind of time frame that you want to look at. So in terms of best teams for fixtures, we've got Inter Milan, Tottenham, Real Madrid, Sporting, Bodo, Paphos and Copenhagen in there, but you're probably not going to want to pick their assets. Arsenal, Dortmund, Napoli, Bayern, you can see some teams there. And in terms of the very worst fixtures, Galatasaray, it looks like, Galatasaray, Kairat, Benfica, you can see all the right ones basically, are probably teams that either you want to avoid or teams you back to do well because they're just really good regardless of who they play. And on the left, might be slightly weaker teams, but they have, well, in some cases might be slightly weaker teams, but they have the best fixtures. So for me, targeting teams on the left-hand side is where I want to go. And then on the right-hand side, I still want to target some of the teams. I just want to pick the best ones, if that makes sense. We've got PSG there, won it last season, right? You're probably still going to want to pick some PSG players, and likewise Barcelona as well. You're probably going to want to pick their players too. All right, now I'm going to show you 2 drafts in this video, but both teams follow quite a similar structure. So at least the defense is identical between both drafts. Now, I'm not saying I'm absolutely nailed on with this defense. We've got time to go, the international break, etc., where anything could change with some of these players. But I think a combination of Trubin and Chevalier, who is looking like the PSG starting goalkeeper in the absence of Donnarumma. Doesn't look like they've signed anyone on deadline day, so you got to think this guy's going to be starting in goal for PSG. And in the game, he's 4.5 million, same for Trubin. So I like the thought of just having 2 4.5 million goalkeepers, so you can spin the wheel each game week. If one doesn't do well, you can swap him in for someone else. Gabriel, Porro, Calafiori, Howson and Zabani in the defence. Again, I'm not massively trusting of PSG defensively, but the thing with PSG is they won the competition last season, and in reality, the only kind of difference to their team is they've lost Donnarumma, and they've gained Zabani, who I think is a genuinely world-class centre-back. He's played 2 of the 3 games that PSG have had in the league so far, so it doesn't suggest he's absolutely nailed on, but he's only 4 million, and I think centre-back who could possibly start for PSG for 4 million, he looks like really good value. Howson, I think, will play regularly for Madrid at 4.5. Calafiori, I just think Arsenal in general, they pride themselves on being solid at the back, right? They've got a really solid team, a core of good centre-backs, good defensive full-backs and midfielders, right? So with that in mind, I think they're going to be pretty solid defensively in the Champions League too. Gabriel, I think, is a really good asset. And I picked Calafiori because at the moment he seems to be the choice left-back. Whether that will stay for the rest of the season, who knows? Might get rotated. Obviously, that's one of the dangers with the Champions League game, is that players get rotated and stuff. So he might change. I'm a little bit worried about rotation for him. And then Pedro Porro. If we just go back to who has the best fixtures, the question of who has the best fixtures, Inter, I couldn't quite stretch to their defenders. The defenders I actually want to pick from Inter are 6 million, 5.5 million. I'm not massive on them. You got Tottenham there, who are back to do quite well defensively. Well, sorry, have good fixtures. Real Madrid also have good fixtures. Who else do I have? I've got Gabriel and Calafiori, who also have good fixtures. So yeah, I've picked a combination of defenders who I think will keep clean sheets and have good fixtures. Although all of the back five I have noticed were in the Premier League last year. So I'm probably, based on my FPL knowledge, and, you know, I'm British, so I'm going to have some Premier League bias, I imagine. It might be a little bit Premier League heavy, this team, but I don't know about you, but I just have a feeling that the Premier League teams are going to do well in the Champions League this season. Obviously, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Barcelona, PSG, they're all going to do well as well. But I just have a feeling these English teams are going to do okay too. I mean, Tottenham, they gave PSG a really good game in the Super Cup. Arsenal, they got quite far in the Champions League last season. They're really solid defensively. I don't see any harm in targeting these British teams, or Premier League teams, particularly if their players are very reasonably priced, which it certainly seems like they are. So the midfield then, and there's a couple of positions here that aren't necessarily like absolutely nailed on. The first one is Lamine Yamal. Now, I could quite easily swap him for Rafinha, who is actually 0.5 million cheaper. But in this draft, I've got Lamine Yamal. Michael Olise, who, well, going into the Club World Cup, was the best Bayern Munich midfielder last season. And I think that's seemingly continuing this year. I want a piece of Bayern Munich. Doué obviously scored his goal in the Champions League final. The next sort of wonder kid coming out of PSG. They've got a ridiculous attack, haven't they? So I went for him. I just think the rest are a little bit either not prolific enough in terms of goals or just too expensive. I think Doué is a good marker in between. And then Reinders and Enzo Fernandez. Now, Reinders, I think, is going to be really good in this game. Combination of hopefully some attacking returns and ball recoveries, I think he could do quite well. And it's the same for Enzo Fernandez. In the Premier League, at least for Chelsea, he does seem to take up quite attacking positions. And I think at 6.5 million, I know he's got Bayern as his fixture, but, you know, at 6.5 million, I think he could be really good value. And depending on Cole Palmer's injury status, I mean, we don't exactly know if he's going to be back for the next game in the Premier League even. The person that took a penalty when Cole Palmer wasn't on the pitch was Enzo Fernandez. So, excuse me, I really quite like the thought of having him in my team. Players I could quite easily swap out, I think. I think the core of Olise, Reinders and Fernandez it's not nailed on, but it's pretty close. I think Olise and Reinders will be in pretty much every team I make. Doué and Yamal could be dropped. Like, Yamal could quite easily become Rafinha for 0.5 less. Doué, I really like him, but as you'll see with my attack, one of the positions isn't a premium asset, and I could drop Doué to get 3 like big dog premium strikers in there. And Enzo Fernandez, I don't yet know enough about the Champions League assets in European football to know if there's a better midfielder for the price. So yeah, as more research happens, I might just replace him. Up front with this particular team, I've gone for Kane and Haaland and Pavlidis. Pavlidis has Qarabag as his first fixture, which I think is a great one. He's got a good record in the Champions League and just in general for Benfica. He's kind of that sort of talismanic figure on penalties, and he's probably going to score a majority of Benfica's goals. So I quite like the thought of saving a bit of cash going for him. That allows me to upgrade players. Well, put Doué in there and Yamal as well. Haaland and Kane, I don't need to say any more about them, really. I think they're going to be amongst the top scorers in the competition, both on penalties for their respective teams, and both of their teams, I suggest, have a good start to the competition in terms of fixtures on the whole. But I feel like I'm missing one big dog up front, and that's Mbappe. We'll just look at this team quickly. So this one, 0.5 million in the bank, and I guess one thing I could do with this team is swap Yamal for Rafinha, and then that gives me 1 million in the bank, which gives me a bit of rotation potential between Pavlidis and Guirassy of Dortmund. I quite like the idea of doing that, but scores on the door with this team. Yeah, this is where we're at in terms of price. I've got 0.5 million in the bank. And now for the second draft. It's very similar to the first one. There's 3 players different. So Mbappe comes in for Pavlidis. Rafinha comes in for Lamine Yamal. And João Palhinha comes in. Who should I have in that place? João Palhinha comes in for Doué. I needed to think about that. I think João Palhinha is going to be a good option in this game. Considering you get a point for every few ball recoveries, I think Palhinha is going to average, like, if he plays at least, which I think he will. He'll average like 10 ball recoveries a game. That's just, he is a ball recoveries machine. When you buy João Palhinha, you know, as a football club, you buy him because of his ability to break up play and win the ball back. And he's got the odd goal in him as well, as we saw against Man City. So I think combination of the odd attacking return plus ball recoveries makes him quite a good option in this game. And I think Mbappe, Rafinha and Palhinha could well be better than Pavlidis, Yamal and Doué. That's just what I'm thinking about at the moment. So yeah, that's the second of the 2 drafts. And the more I think about it, the more I'm kind of warming up to this one being better. It does have nothing in the bank, and as you can see there, with my defense being 2 4.5s and a 4, I'm a little bit stuck in terms of, you know, if one of them gets injured or whatever in terms of moving them around. But I do think there's enough flexibility there. I don't really see the need to absolutely, you know, go balls to the wall in terms of buying expensive defenders. So yeah, let me know what you think of that team in the comments. All right, well, that's the end of the video. Like I said, first time playing this game. I'm not a European football expert by any means, so it'd be interesting to see what you think of the team in the comments. You can let me know in the comments what you think of it. And yeah, I think that's everything. If you haven't already and want to see more Champions League content from me, trust me, I'll be going live before most of the deadlines. I work full-time alongside this, so I'm going to do my best to cover the Champions League in terms of fantasy as much as possible. And I'll have plenty more videos coming out before the deadline as well. So subscribe to the Golden Goal channel. Should be just there on your screen. And yeah, that is everything. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.